Now, a couple of things that Dave Filoni did put out there about the Ahsoka Tano series is that number one, it's going to be very mystical. Number two, it's going to have a lot of callbacks to Star Wars Legends. And number three, it's going to have a lot of twists and turns and cliffhangers that's really going to keep fans on the edge of their seats. That's really going to unravel a lot of new mysteries surrounding the Force, the dark side, the light, and new heroes coming to light. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future Star Wars updates. I'm also on Twitter at Mike01. I thank you all so very much for the great and kind support. And one thing that has been going on over at Lucasfilm has much to do with John and Dave preparing the Ahsoka Tano series Season 1 and 2 to basically be a setup for the Dave Filoni trilogy. And yes, I say trilogy because his one Star Wars movie is going to serve as a gateway to becoming an entire new sequel trilogy in a sense. That's basically Disney's grand plan right now, to really fulfill the Star Wars franchise, to really kind of revitalize Legends on the big screen, to be a retelling of the Thrawn trilogy. That's the overall approach that Dave Filoni is going for, and in doing so, he's using 2 seasons of Ahsoka so far to set those movies up. Now, on top of this, what's really intriguing has a lot to do with the fact of what's coming our way for the Season 2 of Ahsoka, and how it's going to really set a lot of things up for resetting many canon pieces of the sequel trilogy. And I say canon pieces, canon elements of the sequels. So let's dive into all of this. Now, with the Ahsoka show now going through its first phase and stage of marketing by John and Dave, they are already working on Season 2 through the notes and storyboarding phase. Both John and Dave both have a very big plan to use Ahsoka Season 2 as a gateway to resetting many pieces of sequel trilogy canon that is being worked on progressively. One of the most recent developments involves one of the many storyboards for Ahsoka Season 2, in which it uses the key sequences to reset important pieces of sequel trilogy canon. Season 2 of Ahsoka is set to heavily feature Mara Jade, who will serve Grand Admiral Thrawn and eventually become Luke Skywalker's wife. Season 2 of Ahsoka is also planning already to set up the expansion of the Skywalker bloodline. The storyboard illustrations demonstrate a moment planned for the second season, in which Luke does indeed have a child eventually with Mara Jade and marries her, much like in Star Wars Legends. However, both John and Dave are making it canon that Luke's child was in hiding for many years, even during the events of the sequel trilogy when he is grown up. Now, let me stop here for 1 second. Now, this falls directly in line with the book that we talked about that's going to release in holiday of 2024 called Family Trees. And in this Family Trees book, it's going to actually have an expansion of many different bloodlines, including the Skywalkers. And basically that's going to be their rough way of kind of retelling Legends at its finest, as much as they can and as accurately as possible. Now, let's be very clear, there's no way that John and Dave are going to be erasing these movies through and through. Basically, the sequel trilogy is going to be reset through elements. So you're not going to have the movies in full just taken off the roadmap and just completely deleted. They can't really do that because these are massive films that have so much canon material. But what John and Dave are doing as a balanced act is by resetting many moments and pieces, elements, if you will, of the sequels. Just to be very clear there, I wanted to put that out there. I can't stress this enough. Now, John and Dave are beginning to focus on a story that they are coining the phrase, the Lost Skywalker. Not only will many outposts of Luke Skywalker's Jedi Academy survive during the events of the sequels now, as an impact of Ahsoka Season 2, but, of course, his Jedi Academy is to live on during the sequels, but also his son that's being in hiding. John and Dave are also setting up that Mara Jade is being introduced in Season 2 to eventually set up the canon that Ben Solo killed her, and that they are going to justify why Luke went into exile for a more proper reason. They are resetting elements of the sequel trilogy, where John and Dave are fully aware that they can't flat out erase all these movies. So they are resetting pieces of the canon as best as possible, and will continue to do so in phases to create a major workaround for the sequel trilogy. Now, here's the biggest problem about this. I know some fans are going to be divided over this, where they're going to be calling for Jon and Dave to erase these movies in full. Now, to be honest with you guys, in a real world, that's not going to happen. They're not going to just take these movies and say that they are non-existent. They do exist. Unfortunately, they do, and they are going to remain. But as much as I like specific scenes in the sequels, I will be honest about this, I like specific scenes in the sequel trilogy. I don't really like the sequels consistently, where I don't like many other elements as well. For an example, I really am not a supporter of Finn and Poe Dameron's stories in there. It never really grew on me. What did grow on me, though, was essentially specific moments in the sequels, right? Just like in the prequels, you know, even back in the day when people had issues with them, there were moments in there that people really enjoyed. For example, The Phantom Menace did get a bad rap back in '99, but one thing that people loved was the lightsaber duel between Maul, Kenobi, and Qui-Gon. You know, that was a great example there of how each of these movies, no matter how controversial some of them may be, it has its moments, and that's what I view the sequel trilogy as. So look, Jon and Dave are doing whatever they can to repurpose the sequels and to kind of give them new meaning. We also know that special editions are being worked on for their 10-year anniversaries. That will be released, by the way, in 25, 27, and 29. Those years are going to be years in which the sequel trilogy will have new footage, deleted footage canonized in there, and even newly shot material to be inserted into all of it. So the next thing that I do want to cover that's going to be very interesting is how Ahsoka Season 2 so far right now is slated for holiday season of 2025. That is the game plan by Jon and Dave. If the writer's strike continues, unfortunately, until this summer, it's going to delay that process further into 2026, which is a very long time. I know some fans are going to be very turned off about that, but it is what it is. The writer's strike, as much as I hate to point fingers at it, it is what's causing all these shows to be delayed and set back further and further. So I think this entire approach of canonizing Mara Jade and canonizing Luke Skywalker's son in the overall second season of Ahsoka, and how they are coining this phrase, like I said before, the Lost Skywalker, as basically a side story in upcoming canon through books and live-action material, is interesting. Very interesting. I think that they can pull it off if they execute this very well with the upcoming Dave Filoni films, and how those movies will be used as new sequel trilogy lore in a sense. Now, there's another thing that fans need to be aware of, is the fact that this year's Ahsoka, alright, this year's season, is only going to meddle with the world between worlds. It's just the beginning. And that's going to be also another way, a different way, for them to actually kind of retcon elements of the sequels. That's not going to be done until Season 2, however, though. So anyways, guys, fill me in below in the comments what you all have to say about this, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I will catch you guys next time.
From night to